And we're live. How you
Yo,
doing, gentlemen?
very good, very good.
It is a beautiful Sunday morning here in sunny Oklahoma, and you gentlemen are slightly across the pond, and I think a little bit later in the day.
Yes, nearly 7 o'clock over here. Brandon's in London and I'm in Bristol.
That's awesome. I
Funny
love
neighbors.
that. I love that's exactly it right there. That's where I was going. I love that this format exists that allows us to be neighbors. That allows us to have our own little global village full of all the people who are, in our eyes, the most awesome people that exist in the world. So I'm thankful that you're here.
Glad to be here.
Always a
Today's
pleasure.
topic is near-death experiences, and my guests today are Anthony and Brandon, who you have met before. They are wonderful and amazing people. And if you haven't gone to check out their channels yet, do it now. Seriously, just come back to this. Go check them out. But that being said, we're going to move into today's discussion on near death experiences. And I had just kind of kicked out this idea as we're all doing a collaborative effort on Sundays to get together and have like an hour-long conversation about different topics. And so I threw out near-death experiences, and it seemed to be really popular as something to talk about. I have some personal experience in it, but I thought I would see kind of where you guys are on your own experiences and thoughts on it. So let's start with Anthony. What do you think?
So yeah, with near-death experiences have interested me for quite a while because there have been a lot of reports of people, anything people have said in modern times about what comes after death, or the soul and things like that. They've all stemmed from a near-death experience, or someone who has died and actually come back. And I've personally heard a story from a friend when I started inquiring about this. And she told me that her grandmother died in hospital and was resuscitated. And during the time when she was dead on the table, the doctor had come in, pronounced her dead, had left the room, and at some point she came back, and she was able to recollect all of the things that had happened, what had been said while she was pronounced dead, after she'd been pronounced dead by the doctors, even recognizing the face and knowing the name of the doctor that was in the room when she was pronounced dead. And this is kind of, in correlation with a load of other stories that have come out, and people have written books on the back of this sort of stuff. And, I'd heard about it before. The experience for me came was during something we spoke about in one of your other talks, Josh, which was during a plant-based medicine experience. And whether or not, I was not in a scientific scenario, so I cannot say whether I was pronounced dead or not. But the feeling and the conscious presence of that actually happening was very real. It was as though all of my life finished, and I had the expansion of and in my perception, I saw myself on the bed, and I was like exited out of my body. I was standing in the room and free to leave of my own accord, and that was a very scary yet liberating feeling. And it's almost as though when you're in a dream and you have this expansive feeling of freedom where anything is possible at the whim of a thought. Yet, as we are now, we're fully grounded. And a lot of people say there's this tether. You feel a connection to your physical body when you go on astral projections, for example. But that at that point wasn't there, and so that's why it felt really set in as a near-death experience to me, because I was given free rein to explore and even just leave and never come back if that's what I desired. I chose not to. Hello. Yeah. So so that was what happened to me in a nutshell, and it ties into my my whole the rest of the experience that happened with the plant-based medicine, but that's in a different talk that we'll be doing with Kevin. So that's mine, and so I'll pass back to you, Josh, or over to Brandon.
Brandon, what do you think?
Okay. Well, for me, my experiences with near-death experiences was very, very weird and very like, yeah, just weird. I was in Ecuador one time, and my family and I we were going on a trip into the mountains to go to a swimming pool that's located like volcanic swimming pool that's located around in the mountains, and then after for some reason my father he lost control of this large car that contained both me, my sisters, and some students of his because he taught martial arts, and he lost control, and that in that near second, of course my father he's skilled in driving, and of course I believe him. He went and swayed the car, and literally just by that inch the car stopped right here at the end here of the cliffside, so we almost fell to our dooms here over that cliff. And during that the car was literally in almost in inches to flip over and tumble down the hill. So and what was happening with me? Time literally for me is slowed down. I did not know what was going on whatsoever, and all I could feel was my sister's elbow pressing against my face on the window. My face was literally plastered onto the window. But so that goes really upon how that when you're having a near death experience, that time tends to slow down because your perception of life is basically melting before your eyes. You're about to die. And I had another near death experience where I was living in here in England. I just recently came back, and this was during my days of like reconnecting with myself and healing, and going through my emotions, trying to reconnect back to who I was meant to be, because I really lost touch. And so my riding on a bicycle, and then after we were riding, and for apparent reason I did not know what was going on, but as soon as I found out, it was basically that somebody went and um bashed into the wheel of my dad's bicycle, because I was also riding on with him on the same bicycle, and I did not know what was going on. And yet again, time falls for me, and literally, for an apparent reason, I was on the road, and all I could remember was telling my dad to stop because he was going too fast, and it was in the middle of a busy road. And literally I lost awareness. It is like I was living, and I'm talking to you right now, and I literally lost awareness. I'm literally talking to you guys right now, and I just woke up. It is like that sensation. I literally blacked out, and all I could remember here was just was nothing, literally just nothing. I couldn't remember nothing. Maybe I was outside my body, but I was unconscious, and I would like to ask you guys here, why is that? But what I saw, it could be some type of spirit, or some type of energy, or being. It was a man that he had like orange, curly, bushy hair that was very long, and it had like a big, long, curly beard. He had blue eyes. He was wearing a shorts, like army shorts, and he had an orange shirt with a little small graphic of a cartoon on it. And then for some reason, and there was a light behind him, like a big shining light. I do not know what he was doing. Maybe and what I could remember is that from my mind I saw that he was arguing with something. So I assumed that I was a little bit conscious, and I saw him. I thought he was a person that was a part of the situation. He came to check upon me and my dad if we were okay. And so I woke up, and all I could remember here was two paramedics carrying me to the ambulance, and I literally had my entire face scratched off. I was literally very hurt. My teeth, my front teeth was literally bashed out. My father literally needed to stab, no, to place back, like to click my teeth back again onto my jaw. and that and I was and that then after I asked my father after the experience of everything, was there this man the man that I described to both of you already, was he there? And he said no, it was just one man and police officer, and that man, he went and he got away, and of course, yeah, nothing happened. Yeah, he didn't get arrested or anything. I didn't know what happened to this person. And then after he told me no, and then after my father and I started to discuss about what it could be, and then my father had an hypothesis saying it could have been my spirit guide, my protector, my angel, my all sorts of wild theories that we could expand upon later on. But that was it. But like, what do you guys think about that experience? That why in those moments some people, they're not aware, like in astral projection, when you try to astral project, you're not conscious in your first go. What do you think is that? Because I really would like to know.
Josh, you're muted.
There we go. All right, I have a theory, and that theory is that you're not going to see anything you're not ready to see. And so you're not going to have that experience consciously if you're not consciously ready for it. If moving outside of your body violates your identity, your conscious identity with who you are, then you're going to block out the memories of that experience while you're conscious. Because you do it every night. All right? Everyone does. It's just a trick of, are you consciously controlling it? Do you remember it? And that's where the work comes in bridging your conscious mind to your unconscious. So that way you have access both ways. And you're not just switching modes from awake to asleep.
Yes.
You probably just get enough to kind of open your mind a bit more and push the boundaries. So these like near-death experiences and very, very vivid dreams or very vivid experiences in life kind of just take you out of your comfort zone a little bit, but not enough to put you into fear. And it's a love that's trying to do this. So it's like you'll see something. Maybe you have someone in your life who fit that appearance of the red-bearded man, maybe an old teacher or something like that. And so really like these sorts of guides or spirit guides or whatever will just be energetic forms, beings of light. But if we can perceive them, they will be a memory or something we associate with as being of helpful and loving nature.
Yes. And but like what's very when I was at the hospital, I literally told the paramedics I am fine, because that if I had it in my thoughts that I was very bad, I was very bad, I would have continued to remain bad, and that's why I used to have that mental positive focus on it, and my body literally recuperated. But that's going off topic of near-death experiences.
I had a vehicle experience that was a near-death experience. Not exactly the same. I was the driver. I was 16, and I was late for work, and I was like 30 minutes away from where I worked. And so I was speeding, obviously, and I came around this corner, and there was a Bronco that was driving down the middle of the street, and it was doing this wavy thing back and forth. And it was very obviously on purpose, not like they were out of control. Somebody was just being a drunk redneck and having fun. But then they saw me, and they jerked over towards me like they were playing chicken. And I slammed on my brakes and started sliding, and I slid off the road, and I was headed right for this oak tree. And I had a similar experience where I saw myself headed towards the oak tree. I was probably 12 feet from it, moving pretty fast. And then I had obviously just hit the oak tree at some point. The engine was still running, but it was basically sitting right here, and I could touch it. I'd hit the oak tree square on and had not a single injury. And so that's one of those experiences where you have the experience, but you don't consciously remember what happens during a portion of it. It's not the only near-death experience I've had. I've had too many. And, you know, I talked about one of them in Anthony and I, that last chat we had with Kevin. Kevin. Yeah, I talked about my suicide attempt, one of my suicide attempts, and how that produced a full-on mystical experience for me. I don't recommend it as a means to achieve them, but you know, it's not the only near-death experiences I've had. I mean, most of my near-death experiences were when I was young. The day I was born, I died. And they resuscitated me. And so I spent the first year in the hospital off and on and flatlined a couple times. And I've had a few surgeries where they accidentally overdosed me. And so I flatlined. And I have memories from those experiences, but it's nothing like remembering or recalling what it was like in this day-to-day life. I think the closest visual I've ever seen to it is that Netflix show, The OA, where when they were, because that show is all about near-death experiences, you know? And so when they were crossing over that blackness, that void that you find yourself in, I remember that place, but there are lights there. And I wouldn't call them people, but there are people there. And it's just different, that's all. And that's all I really remember that's clear, is just that this deep sense of it's no scarier than what we're doing right now. It's just different than what we're doing right now.
It's the reverse. We spoke about before. I presented a little theory of mine, which is, you know, if you're in time space, then the opposite polarity of that is space time. Or also the other way around. Yeah, we're in space time. So the opposite is time space, where space has to be linear and time is explorable. Which makes sense if you think about, if there is a spirit world and there is a soul, then it's free of the limitations of this reality. And it's free of time, essentially.
I would agree with that. Go ahead.
If you guys know of Sigmund Freud, he calls upon this concept of censorship. So you could tie in a lot of near-death experiences with dreams, because in essence, after near-death experiences, it's basically like going to like a glimpse of that other world, that other dimension, other parallel place. And dreams is basically similar to that, but it's in our conscious mind. It's that world of the imagination, as Plato once said. So he calls upon it that that at night, we dream. That it is when the censorship loses its power, and after when we wake up, that is when the censorship becomes much stronger. So you could say that every night we're basically dead in essence, but we're still alive. And I think we could say we catch glimpses of the parallel world, or of the world that we live in. Ooh, sorry that. That the boat. Oh my god, I got interested by what I just heard. Okay.
The parallel thing catch
in essence, we sleep and we die. We see this other world that we live in, and so we wake up. We only remember what we need to remember. And so, like you said, Joshua, that here in that, and Anthony, when we have near-death experiences, we only remember what we were meant to remember, and if we were not to see something, we don't see it. If you guys catch my drift,
Right, and it's entirely us. The deal is say you don't remember this right now, but you spend some time working on your concepts and evolving your understanding of the world, and then you go back into that memory, and you'll see more than you did before. It's only blocked out because you're not ready consciously right now. As soon as you become consciously ready, you'll begin to and move aside that psychic sensor.
Exactly. So, what were your guys' thoughts on the simulation theory? Because in basically, when we have a near-death experience, we're basically taking away that shell that is this world and seeing something else that's beyond that. So, do you think that has there's something similar to ties into the near-death experiences?
Yeah, this simulation theory is interesting because it essentially kind of ties into this Matrix style thing, and the world is binary ones and zeros, and it's all just a grand illusion. And there is a lot of truth in that, but it's kind of a limited truth. Just how Rene Descartes described the world as being sort of controlled, or there's like a mass illusion going on, and there's some kind of grand consciousness that's pulling the strings and controlling everything. But the Buddha, for example, went beyond that story, or that perception, because that's the perception you get, and I think that is very true. But it's just a way. It's like a kind of another realm of the sphere as you expand, which kind of helps you process everything, and there's nothing wrong with that at all, and it's a part of growing. But if you imagine, like, this is a way for us to catalyze experience right now where we are. If we are unlimited, untethered souls and all coalescing together, the way for us to create new experience, new tangible thought, and new ideas to give to the realm is to kind of play a game, and you have to forget. You have to start from square one, and then you build upon that, and you have infinite potential and infinite possibility, and so you can go in ways in directions that you never thought possible before, and you don't have the precondition nature of knowing the full picture to guide you along. So you can just go on a completely different tangent, or you could find a way. You realize things weren't possible. Things are possible that weren't possible before. Stuff like that. So this is a realm or plane of existence where unlimited potential is available to us, and so we can explore many different possibilities, and I think that's where it ties into that kind of binary illusion, matrix. What we said, process. What word did you use? The illusion. Yeah, the
it's a simulation theory.
Simulation. That's it. Yeah, simulation. So I think that's where it ties into that. So it is true. It is a simulation. It is like a construct, but it's a construct within a larger playing field. We're sat at the table participating in this construct.
Yes.
I'd agree with that.
It's sort of like this is so true. It's basically like the Hindu belief of that we have this external world that we believe in, that when we die, we have that glimpse of it. It's like and that we come back, and then after we've seen life after death. It's like of that we have unveiled the illusion. So you could say a lot that the Hindu tradition has a lot of systems connected to the simulation theory. That it really depicts a lot on how when people come back from near-death experiences, that they're able to recount so many things in such an accurate way that they begin to like paint in a they begin like to paint and illustrate certain objects and stuff, like you see those murals in churches and everything. Like, do you think as well that here those paintings are like channelings on like how they perceived, how they channeled the afterlife?
Yeah, it's like a collective consciousness dream rather than an individual's dream. We have to associate these vast, crazy concepts and personify them or anthropomorphize them so that we can make sense of them. You imagine like hundreds of years ago, you couldn't have said like, oh, that constellation in the stars, all those 5 stars together are like all a kind of unit, and they affect through a very weak magnetic field the thought process that you make. It would not have struck a chord with anyone, because you have to explain so much theory or like advanced knowledge to people at that time, which just wasn't common knowledge. So you say like, right, this is like the scorpion god, and this scorpion affects you in a certain way during this moon when you see that blue moon or whatever, so that helped us to get a grip on the archetypes of how different celestial bodies affect us here on Earth. And I think now we are getting to the point where we can start to explain stuff more scientifically, so it doesn't have to be like praising these gods or these like figures, and that was just the old collective consciousness dream that we manifested. What do you think about that, Josh?
I think that's, well, okay. I think that's like 9 cans of worms to get into, but I think that for myself, all of the gods, the divine, all these mythologies that we have, they're paint on the palette. All right. They're texture in order for you to provide contrast.
Mm-hmm.
If you think of it like this, say you have these dozen highly evolved beings, all right? They're not wearing a skin suit like I am, all right? That's my garment, all right? But they're not wearing a garment. They're just divine light, all right? And so when I look at them, I just see light, and it moves, and it moves like a being, but I can't see their facial features. And their light is so brilliant that it's difficult to look at them. So I might glance at them, but then I have to avert my eyes. And to think of them, I have to place an image in my mind of where that brightness was.
Mm.
And so I think that image that I place in my mind was created in my mind and was never a part of what their light was in the first place. It's entirely based on where I'm at and how I interpret or speak to the divine. And I think that's what those things are. But to come back to that simulation theory question, I think that when Brandon was saying earlier that dreams are a lot like near-death experiences, I think he was more accurate than most people realize. Because I believe that right now, currently, there's a version of your conscious mind operating in every possible version of Anthony. And it's all happening right now, all together at the same time. Well, how does that happen if who you are isn't your conscious mind? Is the only way that can happen. Your conscious mind is just an identity. It's a mask. It's a skin suit that you're putting on. And so at any given moment, you are literally like that guy who decided to create 100 bots on World of Warcraft, enslave all of their actions to his, but with a small variable. And so you're bouncing between all these different characters, basically running them all at the same time, but with a slight variable. And I think that every time you go to sleep, the conscious mind, which one is the anchor that the rest are copying from or shifting from, is what is actually causing us to shift. I think that we shift every time we blink. I think that it happens when we sleep and when we die. I think when we're born is just another of those such experiences. Because really, when you stop and think of it, when you woke up today, what guarantee do you have that any of the memories that you have in your head, the memories of any dreams you had, are actually connected? Or is it possible that they're entirely just a constructed story and you're playing a play that is today? I don't know, but I can guarantee you no one else does either.
I like that. I really like that explanation, and you know, you really touched on a good point there of the multitude of consciousness and experience, and you know, in the same experience that's led to, you know, what I perceived as an NDE, the thought of like time being like this multifaceted page book that's just constantly flipping, and you're seeing all these glimpsing images correlating everywhere, and it really kind of makes sense when you look at the imagery of people's spiritual experiences, or when they kind of try and express this concept, and you see like the head with many faces, and you see that expanding out of the top and the bottom into all infinity in this massive cascade of structures all around it, which are all built from the same facial image. Like that, it was as though we're selecting which moment we want to, which eyes we want to see through in the wall of faces that are everywhere, so that we can make sense of it, or, you know, to turn it into a finite point in space and time, because we have infinite potential in it. Right now, I could end this call and go off somewhere. I could jump through the window. I could sit here peacefully and silently. There's like a multitude of different things that happen at any different time, and the butterfly effect dictates that any of those possibilities can lead to infinitely wider variety of possibilities. So life is truly infinite in that sense, and we are cascading through this matrix. So it ties back into that, Brandon, the whole thing. That I think that links perfectly with, you know, what you just brought up, Josh, and what we've kind of spoke about in this glimpsing the death experience through the illusion of that word again. I forgot, Brandon.
Simulation.
Simulation.
Simulation. I don't know why. I guess I don't like to refer to it as a simulation, because simulation implies that it's like not real or something.
Ah, it's like unveiling the Maya. It's like what you talked about, Anthony, is it very ties in like to like the Hindu tradition, like, because I think you were trying to dance about those entire faces, different choices of like of who we are, what we can be. And that and also what you said, Joshua, about the being on a stage and we're just performing a play. It reminds me of a specific quote from Shakespeare, saying that we're all just mere actors, and in life we're just merely just playing a performance. So that as you said, Anthony, with those choices, like, if you were to, like, let's say, jump out a window, and if you were survive, you become a different person, because in ourselves die. We're always changing. We're always never staying the same. And so when you go there, you would activate that butterfly effect, and you would make different circumstances and different places come forward to you, and so therefore you become a different person. So that ties into the multiverse of a multiverse universe. But I feel like I'm just repeating what you said.
No, you're totally right, and that's what, you know, a lot of information for moving on. Like the old us, the old me, the old you is dead. Like the person you used to, think about the person you used to identify with 10, 20 years ago. That person is no longer here. You may still have a slither of a thought that was resonant with that being that you still hold true today. But I guarantee most of that person is gone and not here anymore. And we exchange all this stuff. You know, it's the ego. That you have to kill your ego to progress. But it's not done as in like one day you killed off your ego and then you carried on. It's slowly, you know, you're taking in what feeds you, and then when you let it go out, it feeds someone else, or it moves to a different place where it can exist. And that can be on paper, that can be on a video, and that can be on a song. It can be whatever you pour yourself into. It can be through conversation. And when whoever takes that, uses it, and it passes on. It's just all cascading around, collecting and exchanging.
I want to jump in here. I got to say this. I hear people say kill your ego, and it's a very important phrase, right? Because it really puts forth this whole very strong idea that needs to occur for personal growth. But I think that a lot of people misunderstand the phrase because they believe that it's like if I decide to go out and kill my dog, all right, it'll be dead and there's no more dog, right? But your ego isn't an entity that you can go and murder, right? It's a part of it. It's a tool of your consciousness. What we have to kill is our addiction to identifying as it, and so that's all I wanted to clarify that because you're not that ego. You know, you're not your conscious mind. You're not any of these labels. They're just garments you put on, right? And that's all. I needed to put that out there.
That's it, and that's the same as what Brandon said. You know, that Shakespeare said, "All the world's a stage, and people are merely actors in it." And the actual word persona, literally is a blend of mask or character and mask. So we as people or persons are masks on consciousness. You know, and you can choose to be. You know, your spiritual self one day. Or maybe you go and meet some old friends and you put on your sociable mask, or you put on different masks with different people, and that's just the way we've learned to interact. So it's a good thing, yeah, and nothing needs to be killed, so to speak. So that is a wrong terminology to use. It's exchange, exchanging what serves and what doesn't at the time of need.
Right. I mean, I still think that the terminology is valuable, especially for those who have never experienced it. All right. Because it's very much like a fight with yourself, in a lot of ways. Until you get a handle on you're the one doing it all, until you can feel that, I think kill your ego, is it works. It works for a lot of people. It's good. It's just that too often people get obsessed with this idea of the promised land. I'm gonna do this and then I'm gonna be there and it's all gonna be better. No, you're still gonna have an ego. You're just gonna understand that you're the one that ultimately gets to control that. Yeah. That's the difference.
That's very true. Also,
it's balance. It's basically balancing your nature with your ego. It's basically having like a communicative, symbiotic relationship with your ego. Because an ego, it's actually very healthy to have, but not in a way of like asserting the dominance against our personas. It's like this Japanese saying that I saw as a quote. It's like that we have three masks in life. One that we show to our families. The other and the other is who we are. So you could say basically we live in layers, and as this astral projector, I think it was he did a lot of studies on astral projection. It was just some person who studies. I forgot his name. He basically said that when we astral project, and he basically found out that we have layers towards ourselves. That
Rupert Sheldrake.
We have. No, it's definitely not him. It was someone else. Okay. I think Jordan did a video on it. It was on astral projection. It was if you guys remember that episode, what he did.
Yeah, astral projection.
There's a lot of episodes. I'm trying to raw through. I can't remember who it is you're talking about for sure, but there are a lot of people who study astral projection, and I'm totally with the idea of the layered person. Yeah, I'm always saying that the idea that any person ever has one motivating factor for an action is preposterous, because no human being has ever been motivated by only one thing. Not once. There's always a complex interplay of desires and instincts, and how that mixes together is what results in what we do.
Mm-hmm. We have to dive in through the roots of the mind the core being, and that core being is connected. You know, it's like as above, so below. If we are trees. Our personality is a tree, and the trunk connects to the personality of the human race, and then that connects to personality of the universe, and so or the Earth, and so on.
Oh, I remember who he was. It's called Robert Monroe. That's who it was.
Yes.
And he basically said that that in each of those layers is basically shelves of on how you would we treat ourselves, and inside of the very core, like an onion, is who we actually are. That core essence, that chi, that prana, that agni, everything.
Yeah, very good.
Exactly. Yeah.
I like the onion analogy. I usually use the Russian nesting dolls when I'm trying to explain it, and so it's the same concept of it's who you really are is in there, but you got to keep going because it's not this layer, it's not this layer, it's not this layer.
You have to keep going to forget everything about what a layer is, you know, what a concept of a thing is. There is no complete freedom, complete unlimitedness. And even that doesn't describe it, because you can't describe it. It's unfathomable. It does not compute.
I don't know. I mean, you can make geometry that kind of describes it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Everything is just an indicator. We have very good indicators and some not so good indicators, but
yeah, it's just a signpost. It points a direction. That's it.
Yeah. I love the quote from Bruce Lee where he says, you know, it's like a finger pointing to the moon. Don't look at the finger or you'll miss all the heavenly glory.
I love that one. I had a Zen teacher who taught that in a slightly different way. And his way was he would tell this parable. And so Master has 3 students, all right? And only one of them is going to be kept as a student. And it's the one that can answer this question correctly. And so he tells his students, you know, that's the challenge before them. And they're like, what's the question? He's like, to find out the question, show up tomorrow morning sitting in meditation posture. So the next morning, comes out into his backyard. They're all 3 sitting there in meditation posture. So he steps back inside. He emerges with a teapot with water in it. And he comes out and he sets it on the ground in front of him. And he says, what is this? And the first one says, it's a teapot. And the master says, nope. And he gets up and leaves. The second one says, it's water. And the master says, no. And he gets up and leaves. The third one gets up and kicks over the teapot and continues his training with the master. It's the same message. It's just a slightly different way to tell it. You're not gonna get it right by trying to throw a label at it, ever, right? We're only ever pointing at it. So he demonstrated what it was by interacting with it.
Yeah.
And that's the lesson there. You got to be a part of it. But
I like that.
I love that.
That's much more like a call to action type of explanation. Yeah, I like that one. Never heard that.
What are your guys' thoughts but it's very funny, you know, it's quite a synchronicity. Just backtracking a little bit, because White here, Joshua said that he saw a Bronco, and the car on the mountain was a Bronco as well. And
wow.
Just wanted to tell that. Yes, just wanted to get that out there.
That's wild. That's really wild. Yeah, it was for me, it was a gray Bronco. And it was okay. It was a gentleman driving with dark hair, and that's all I remember as far as he goes.
All right. Well, what are your guys' thoughts here on basically that in the dream we can create whatever we want, and that we are basically living out alternative universes, alternative pathways that we could have chosen on the preceding day. Or you could say, what is this world that we see? Let's dive into this. What is this world? Because it's very funny that on how we went experiences all the way to how all the way on how the near death experiences can change, and now we're moving on to the shells of the body. Like, how do you think that basically that in the dreams we basically kill ourselves? So do you think that what is this world that is the dream, and is the world that we see in our dreams, and is the world that we see in our near death experiences the same, or do you think is there some type of religious connection you can make there, or scientific, or your own perception?
I think we're
Anthony, do you
trying.
want to?
Yeah, yeah. I think we're trying to identify, a place as like, group it into saying like this is a world, or this is a world. It's all the same place. This is all same wibbly wobbly interconnected place. Even here with what we were talking about, the expression of time and the possibility, you can go into a different. We as a species could make the collective decision to change, and the world will change around us, like very physically and literally. We can decide that we want the world to be made of glue, and it will be, and that's just the power of the mind on a collective scale. So the idea of having a place that is like set in stone and saying that this world is where we go and we dream, this is where we go and we die, I guess it doesn't make sense. It works to identify it. It's a good identifier, again, indicator, but they're interconnected and they're malleable, they're changeable. So you can exist in a dream wherever you want to exist in a dream.
That's basically right where I was going to go. I'm going to say that the Tibetans, the Egyptians, both believed you could map out the journey of the soul, because they also externalized the concept as though it was some place you could get to. But when it comes down to it, I think Anthony's right. It's not some place that you get to. It's not like I could go over here and I would be in the dream world, or I could go 3 steps further and I'd be in the near-death experience world. No, it's all this same world right now. When you're in your dreams and you're like, I want a glass of tea, and you have a glass of tea in your hand, right? But if you're right here and you're like, I want a glass of tea, and there's not a glass of tea in your hand, what's the difference? Well, what's the difference, though? All right? Because a glass of tea can appear in your hand equally in both, all right? So the only difference, you could liken it to a video call or an online game that has a really high latency. That's the dream world. So you made the decision to make the action, but you didn't see all the frame rates that occurred in between getting the glass there and that. Just bam, glass is there. But here we have an incredibly ultra low latency reality. And so we see the frames that lead up to. But that's it.
So yeah, it's again time and space then. In that realm, all that needs to change for the glass to be in your hand is the space around you, or the space. It materializes. But here, for that thing to happen, what needs to change is the time. You need to spend time to go and get the glass and fill it up and boil the kettle and everything, to then get it in your hands. So it's a different way of processing things, and perfectly in line with what you said, Josh, about the frame rate thing. That's a great way of looking at it. Yeah, I like that. Glitch. You dream into glitch life.
Yep. I think they tried to like conceptualize that to a certain extent in what was that movie, Fight Club? There would be moments in his waking life where he would glitch out,
right? Yeah.
And I think that's kind of that same concept occurring there, where his dream life is becoming his real life.
Mm-hmm. And in Fight Club, he says as well when they crash in the car on the motorway, he's like, we just had a near life experience. You know? I like that way of looking at it as well. It's you know, you had an experience that then makes you go out and live, just like what you said earlier, Brandon. You know, if you jumped out the window and nearly died, that's going to propel you to really live the way you want to live, because if you're faced with that decision or that choice or that experience of being on the verge of death and this experience not going to happen anymore, then you see, what do you really want from this experience? What is really going to fulfill you? What do you need to do before that happens? So if there's a time frame, you know, you have a near life experience where something like that happens to make you propel you to do it even more. I think maybe we get these experiences at times when we have either nearly gotten to the point of giving up, or we've been driven into a state of compression where we do not express and create so much. And so life gives us a kind of, it opens the door and says, hey, look, you know, you're going to have to do something here, or you're going to have to go through this door. So you then are propelled to finish what you were doing before you leave. We're all here. We've forgotten what we were doing. We've forgotten why we're here. You know, I like to think that we came here with a purpose, and we decided to incarnate here for a reason, because we saw the potential of this life. And the whole risk reward of that is you're doing it blind. So you have to make decisions and you have to go along with it. Yeah, and reiterating what I said again. You know,
that's beautiful, Anthony, because that's right where I was going to go next with my next question, which was, most people who have had a near-death experience exhibit a change in behavior afterwards. And one of the more commonly reported features from those experiences is a sense of purpose, something you have to get done in life, and a drive to do it usually accompanies one of these experiences. Now, what that is different for everyone, but I don't know about you, but I know I have definitely experienced both of those things. So would you say that your near-death experience gave you a sense of purpose, or made you refocus how you lived your life?
Certainly, completely. I mean, before my experience, I was completely on a path of self-destruction. And, you know, a lot of the experience kind of showed me the polarity I was at, where I was in service solely to myself. And there was very little, well, you know, there was a small part of my waking life that was dedicated to helping others, or even just doing something selflessly. And that, just being confronted with that, just made me go, all right, well, you know, if I'm doing anything for myself, it's not helping anyone, and you know, I can actually help myself by helping others, and I want to experience the emotions that come from that, and the reward and the feeling of helping others is better to me. I felt that was a better feeling than the feeling I get from just doing things for myself and feeling the reward for myself. So it definitely changed the behavioral patterns of me, because before that, you know, I was just literally sat inside playing games, smoking weed, you know, attending to all my selfish needs, and maybe doing it with a friend now and then. But after that, it just all changed. You know, I dedicated my life to wanting to help other people, or doing something on a grander scale. You know, expanding my influence and presence in everything. So,
what about you, Brandon? Thank you, Anthony.
Well, for me, basically, with my first one that I told you about, the Bronco, I was very young, so nothing quite changed, because I was still on quite a good path, because I was still in the childlike essence of mine, because in that age I was still I was in a group of expansion, like how we are right now. I was in that type of group as a child. So my feelings at the end of that experience was very I was just pale and about to faint, like very, oh my god, what just happened? But with my other experience, at that line, I felt like I was changing. I was reconnecting back with myself. on on how Annie said, but like mine was not as severe as yours, Anthony. Mine was more like of something of being closed in, being closed off on what life gave me, and I've was subconsciously I tried unconsciously. I mean, consciously I tried not to be closed off, but unconsciously I was closed off from the world. I tried to control what I did. I was trying to reminisce on how I did things, my practices not evolving. And but so at that exact point, I remember it just really changed, and it gave me motivation into carry on and doing what I wanted to do, because I made a promise to myself when I was in Ecuador. I said to myself, I will not die and let my last breath not be that this world does not know the word peace for at least, let's say, a year or so. The word of peace. It motivated me into like studying in my high school, going and doing my GCSEs and everything, and passing all of those. So therefore, I had the barrier. Basically, it was just a motivation into continuing on onto my journey of true living, the life that I wanted to live in, and just reconnecting with myself and having trust in myself that I will achieve this goal of mine that I wish to do.
Yeah,
It's
it's
mainly just
very good.
motivation for life.
It's very powerful, the near-death experience, I think, or any life-changing experience for that matter.
I mean, I could say that it's probably just anytime you have a high impact event occur, then it has the potential to imprint on your brain, and that process creates like a new set point for yourself. So I could say that I think it's that, but ultimately that comes back to this whole idea of biological psychology and me believing that I am the result of my meat and I don't. So I think that these experiences help us to stretch our awareness of what's possible in a lot of ways. I mean, I know for me, every time I've been through one, my view of the world has grown. The complexity of the world and how dynamic it is, it grows every time I've had an experience like this. And I think that you were pretty right on earlier when you were comparing a death experience through plant medicine. That coming to the edge of the death experience that happens on plant medicine just as likely as it happens, getting into a car wreck. And I've had both, and I wouldn't say that either one was less impactful. Honestly, I would say that they were pretty much equally on the money. With they mean what they say, and I think that it's just beautiful that we have the ability to come face to face with something that we could let traumatize us for the rest of our life, but instead we choose to rise above that. And I think that's an amazing thing.
It's so true, because it is so true. It's that what you said. It basically really it really ties into this thing about when we live our life. And out here, we have come to a point that we've experienced the bad and the good. We're basically one just spiraling yin yang. We experience negative and positive and everything. And if we had like untied things that we have not finished or completed within ourselves because we forgot to, it really goes into this thing of like, let's say, this is just like my terminology for that I created. It is like you like a person, a man experienced an entire life set. He died, and now I feel like that essence, that energy goes into, like, let's say, his ancestry blood, like energy bloodline. I don't know what's the correct terminology for this. Like the akashic records, like that. And then I feel like that affects the next generation, because I've been reading a book about the genealogy of morals, and it basically said that how we are right now is also a factor and a result on how our ancestors were in the past. So you could say that that energy carried on forward into our bodies, our conscious minds in the present moment. So I feel like once we need to like literally go like way deep into our bodies and like literally just try to heal our ancestral bloodline, or even like let's say past life regression. I think that is the motive of past life regression, because it's like healing yourself, healing your past life, or even you could say your ancestors' life. So therefore yourself in the process. So I feel like that if we all manage to heal ourselves in that process, but I think that would never come to pass, because we're just basically a yin yang. So ending is never going to so healing is never going to end. So so I feel like if we manage to come at that point, that borderline of being healed, I feel like that there was some great change will happen in the world, because I feel like that if we want change in this world, and that we must first heal ourselves through our past life and integrate it into our present.
What's that? What's that? There's a Zen joke. It says, if a man says that he needs to see a psychologist, then he should probably have his head examined. And so, thank you for laughing at that one. The idea is the assertion that we need to heal, all right, that there is something that needs to be fixed, creates a situation that we are attached to that cannot be fixed. If we define ourselves as healing, then when we are in a perpetual state, we're always going, but we're never getting there.
Mm-hmm.
We get there by realizing there's no there to get to. We get out of the car and we stop going. And there is no past that we need to go back to and heal. It's all right now. And so when you're reaching out to your ancestors, I am reaching out to them right now. They are very real and here, the same as I am. We're just seeing this expression.
I applaud you, Josh.
Yes.
All right. I love you both deeply. I also love the idea of shutting up this angry demon that seems to be summoning forth through my stomach. And so I'm going to prevent that thing from emerging into the world by shoving some food down my face.
Sure.
But I just want you both to know that I deeply appreciate you both being here. I love our conversations, and the things we talk about. It is incredibly stimulating, and it helps me a lot. And I can only hope that it helps you as well.
Yeah, I really enjoy our talks, and even just watching you talk to other people, Josh, it's great. I've said this before. I love your show, and what both of you are doing, I think what we're all doing is a great thing, and that's just sharing, connecting with people, using the internet as a medium, and you know, sky's the limit. We're already there.
All we need to do is just break through that door. Just open it up and just open it, and we'll be just there.
Yep, that's exactly it. Once you open the door, you realize you're already there.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, guys. Namaste.
Thank you. Namaste. So much love.
So
love you guys.
love.